All right, so in this video, I want to take you through how you can really maximize your chance of breaking into quantitative finance in one of three roles. So, the three main roles in quantitative finance, if you're not aware, are going to be developers. These are the people who are responsible for generating rapid implementations of trading strategies, as well as you can think of it as kind of like a quant DevOps. Basically, anything to speed up the process, generate good visualization tools, and make the lives of the traders and researchers easier. You also have the trader. These are going to be the people who are actually sitting at the desk doing the trading, insofar as it's at least partially discretionary, or maybe they're looking over mostly algorithmic models, things like this. And then the researchers are going to be the people who are building models to either analyze and mitigate risk or to generate alpha, right? These are the three key roles, and you should sort of have an idea. I would say, especially this is targeted towards university students. This video is pretty heavily targeted towards university students. You should have an idea if you want to break into quantitative finance. It's not the end of the world if you don't, but if you know you want to be in it, decide which role you want to be in by, let's say, like your sophomore year. It's not the end of the world if you haven't, but here's going to be the name of the game for this video. The idea is you have sort of 9 points. It's almost like you have skill points in some RPG video game. And the question is, for these three roles, what is the best way you can allocate these 9 points among the three knowledge bases that are necessary for quantitative finance, which are going to be mathematics, coding, and finance knowledge. And the idea here of these cyan or teal or whatever squares, rectangles, is that, and you kind of have to be honest with yourself here, if you're smart, you can do more than other people, right? So if you are above average intelligence, give yourself an extra point and allocate it where I'm kind of indicating. Same thing for work ethic. If you're one of those people who can just work, 10 hours a day on these types of complex things and you don't get exhausted, then give yourself another point and you'll see where you might want to allocate that. Okay, so really the whole purpose of this video is how do you best allocate your time and efforts in order to maximize your chance of breaking into quant finance for your desired role. So the outline for the video is this. So I'm going to have some initial remarks that are going to be applicable to everyone, whether you're in university still or not. Then we're going to go over quantitative developers, we're going to go over traders, and then finally researchers. And the bonus piece of this is that after each one of these, I'm going to show you, and there will be timestamps down below. You can sort of click the chapters too if you're just interested in one of these. I'm going to give you one piece of directly actionable advice if you're still in university. So these are things that you can really benefit from if you are in university to help your chances of getting hired, because it's still tough. I know the job market, it's early 2025. The job market is improving, it seems, but it's still tough out there. And then I'm going to give you one clear project idea that will set your resume apart from other people if you're able to accomplish it. Okay, so let's get into these initial remarks. And this is the harsh reality. No one wants to hear this, but nothing you can do is going to beat networking. You can be the smartest person. You can have the most projects. You can be basically a genius. It doesn't matter. If you don't network at all, you are just a blank slate applying from nowhere. And you might get hired, you might not, but it's much more of a numbers game. If you network and you leverage the opportunities that you have in places like university to have dinners with speakers and things like this, it's totally priceless, the degree to which you are going to benefit from this. So if you're in university, seek out research opportunities. Contact your professors. Almost every university is going to have undergraduate research opportunities. That's what you want to look for. Also, start thinking about internships as early as you possibly can. I don't even care if it's your freshman year. See if you can get them. If you can't, it's fine. Start to get some feedback, see where you need to improve, up your resume, and apply for internships every single summer. Internships are effectively like a long hiring process. It's very expensive to hire people in this space, right? Naturally, which is why so many people want to break into it. If these places can hire interns for, cheap, obviously, compared to like a full hire, you better believe they're seeking these types of people that they can bring on after they graduate and keep them around if they are good at what they do. It mitigates so much risk for them in terms of hiring just random people off the street. And again, in networking, I know people in STEM especially don't want to hear it, but you need to hear it. It's important and you need to start doing it. And you will regret it if you graduate university and haven't done this enough. And really do these things at any cost. I don't care if it's your social life, I don't care if it's, whatever. I mean, maybe don't sacrifice your health or something like that, but you really do need to prioritize these things because you are going to be going against people who are prioritizing these things. Okay, and the other thing that's it's so common in the space is people, for some reason, overcomplicate things. If you want to get into quantitative finance, do things related to what you want to do. If you want to, people hear like, oh, they hire physics PhDs. I have a physics PhD. They are not begging to hire you as a quant because you have a physics PhD. Likewise, you're not going to be hired as a quant trader just because you have a data science master's or something like this. So, if you want to be a quant, do things that lead you to becoming a quant. Do not have this very roundabout path where you think, I'm going to do like a master's degree in philosophy and then I'm going to pair it with a PhD from some other place. Don't do it. Focus on what you're trying to actually accomplish, which is get into quantitative finance, right? So target internships. If you want to be in research, do a PhD, right? I'm not going to say don't do a PhD, but don't do these things just because you think it's like you heard some guy say, oh, they hire a lot of people from chemistry in quant research. It's nonsense. Like maybe they do, sure, but they would always prefer to have someone who has direct experience and is also like smart and has a good education. So target things that will directly lead to you getting hired in a role. Okay, so we're going to hop over to developers. And remember, the idea is you have 9 points. So these 9 points are distributed according to mathematics, coding, and finance. The blue points are if you truly believe that you are above average intelligence, or, and when I say above average intelligence, I mean for people trying to get into the space. So that's already kind of biased a bit high. So if you're much higher than average intelligence, and if you are much higher than average in terms of your work ethic, give yourself these 2 points. But I think the quantitative developer makes sense, right? Quantitative developers implement basically you would like to be able to do things that are like HPC ready, high performance computing ready, where nanoseconds matter in terms of order execution for market making firms, high frequency trading, all of these things. And so, of course, you need to max out your coding. That's going to be in a real, low level language like a C++. This is not going to, just Python's probably not going to cut it for the overwhelming majority of quant dev or roles. The benefit of quant dev is it's going to be the least important in terms of your education. If you are good at coding, you can probably get into quant dev regardless of your educational background, provided you have the projects to demonstrate that. Now, mathematics are going to be a bit important. You need to know how to numerically implement, or rather implement sort of like numerical algorithms, optimization schemes, things like this. It's important. And you also need to know a good bit of the finance. So it's pretty evenly split between the math and finance. I would give equal effort to those, but the key thing for you there is you need to absolutely max out your coding skill. Okay. And so some ideas for action that you can do if you are in university: speak to the people in your computer science department. Your university probably has some high performance computing. That's what HPC stands for, cluster. And if you can learn to develop code in these parallel environments, if you can take advantage of, accelerated hardware like GPUs, TPUs, this is the type of stuff that will really set you apart. And it's not that hard to get into, especially as an undergrad. People will be happy to work with you. Now, in terms of a project, what I would do is I would go into the computational or the quantitative finance archive. You can look it up, ARXIV, and look for a strategy, or maybe it doesn't have to be like an actual algorithmic trading strategy, but look for something that's on there in the computational finance section, which is compute intensive. And then I want you to take that project and run your own implementation where you optimize the heck out of it. And that will really demonstrate that you can take complex finance ideas, which are probably going to have some math and some finance knowledge that you don't have, you will need to brush up on, and you can implement it in a way which is, has high fidelity to the method. The paper will have results you can compare your implementation against. And then, of course, you need to make it optimized and fast. So do that. It's a good idea. We're going to move on to trader now. Traders maybe one of the roles where you could argue about these allocation of points, but in my opinion, this is pretty accurate. And for all of these, I should mention I talked to two quant researchers, someone who's a quant trader. I didn't talk to any quantitative developers, but this one's pretty straightforward. And I talked to someone in IB to get their take on all of these, and we've sort of all settled on the same spot. So these are pretty reasonable, and it's not just my opinions, a good number of other people too. So the quant trader needs to understand all of these sort of complex multi-legged option things. If you're going to be doing options market making, you really need to understand the underlying financial objects that you're trading. It's important. You have to be someone who's on top of maybe the news, depending on your job. You have to understand the underlying, quote unquote, science of finance. It's very important. I was sort of torn between going 2 and 2 on math and code. I dropped code lower because really you need to maybe query some databases. You need to know how to maybe discretionarily trade something which is algorithmically advising you. You could argue you need more code here, but it's going to be in a language like Python. So I think it's a relatively low effort in order to pick up what you need for code as a quantitative trader. One thing people will see a lot in quantitative trading job descriptions is these sort of pseudo IQ tests. So you need to be on top of your math and applied statistics. All of these brain teasers, all of the things like that. As a quant trader, you want to have those down like the back of your hand. You need to know your statistics, applied statistics, and you kind of need to be quick and on top of it in terms of you can't be really that slow and a quant trader. I think in terms of raw talent, this is probably the most talent demanding role, in my opinion. Okay, so in terms of the action, the key thing for quant trader, go ahead and if you don't believe me here, go on LinkedIn, go to the top tier, go to the tier one firms, look at the quant traders. Every one of them is from an Ivy League school. Basically, every one of them has internships at crazy places. So these people are incredibly well networked. Okay. So seeking internships as early as possible is your new job. Networking is your new job. You need to get involved in every dinner. If there are quant finance firms coming to your university, doing a dinner, discovery day, this kind of stuff, you need to be on top of that starting your freshman year, if possible. And again, these are ideals. If you're graduated or something, I'm not saying you can't get into it, but this is definitely the role where it seems they want the youngest people and they want people who are kind of on top of their game right out of the gate. And this is also maybe one of the most demanding roles in the sense that you'll be at the desk trading during trading hours pretty much all the time. And it's high stress, of course, you could imagine. Okay, now in terms of a project, I would recommend that you build out and maybe paper trade a real strategy that demonstrates that you can understand and have a grasp on applied advanced statistics in a kind of high pressure scenario. And the idea should be that you target this strategy based on the type of firm you want to work at. If you want to work at some HFT options maker, options market maker, then you should be looking at HFT strategies. Of course, it's tough to do HFT as an individual, but get something going to show that you understand it and you can implement these ideas, and it's not over your head. Likewise, if you want to work at a stat arb firm, that's much easier to do on your own, and you can sort of, there's a lot of statistics there that you can demonstrate your knowledge of, okay? So these are the things I would recommend there. Now, in terms of the research roles, these are the ones that I have personally interviewed for, the ones that I've personally done a bunch of online assessments for. And so, I mean, I'm pretty confident in speaking on this section. Pretty obvious that the most important thing for a quantitative researcher is going to be math. You need to be on top of the math. And it's not just statistics anymore. It's going to be, all of your calculus, differential equations. The more math you know, the more useful you are because the more clever you can get with your ideas. And if you know math specific to different domains like physics or chemistry or even biology, you can work these things into quantitative finance models. So don't think any math that you have learned or you are planning to learn is going to be useless, because I promise you it will not be. You need to know coding, okay? It is important. You need to know how to prototype your models. You need to know how to visualize things, and you need to know maybe some machine learning. If you're going to be in some machine learning heavy firm, then coding, you might want to add another point here. But really, even these days, machine learning coding is pretty basic. It's much more depends on your understanding of statistics, which would fall under the mathematics side here. Now, the reason I put finance, and especially these bonus points in finance, is because math is a very theoretical thing, right? You can know PDEs, you can know stochastic calculus, you can know linear algebra, group theory, all of these things, measure theory. It doesn't matter. If you don't know how to apply it to a real scenario, and applying it to a real scenario in this scenario, of course, requires the knowledge of the underlying financial instruments. So I think it's kind of underrated, the finance knowledge in terms of a quant researcher. Many people will say, oh, it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter that much to get hired, because the assumption is that, if you have a PhD in something, you could probably pick up the finance knowledge. But I promise you, every time I have gone to learn a bit more in depth about the financial instruments I'm interested in, it has paid off, tenfold. So I would really recommend you don't overlook this as much as some people do. And if you want to do, I should have mentioned, I guess, in the trading, in terms of your education, you're going to need at least a bachelor's. Maybe you need a master's. You probably don't, but many traders will get hired out of a bachelor's, but it's usually going to be from like a top tier school if you're targeting top tier firms. And in terms of researchers, you need a master's or a PhD. It's just as simple as that. I would recommend statistics, math, computer science. Again, my background is in physics. It's not a terrible thing, but I wouldn't recommend it. Applied statistics or something like that is going to give you way more bang for your buck in terms of breaking into quant finance. Now, in terms of action, if you want to be in quant research, which many people who are interested in quantitative finance, they're interested in quantitative research or trading. You have to be involved in undergrad research as early as humanly possible. You will never get into, nowadays, you just will not get into a top tier PhD unless you have significant, maybe you don't need to have a lot of publications, but at this point, I'm pretty confident in saying you're not getting into like a tier one school. You're not getting into an Ivy unless you have publications as an undergrad. And, we can criticize that and the degree to which that's feasible for some people. But if you want to get into one of those places, try your hardest to publish research before you graduate. Undergrad, not grad school. And I would not really recommend doing something like a master's in finance to get into quant research. I think you're much better off doing something which is a bit more theoretical, but useful to the space, like statistics. And in terms of a project, here is, and this is tough because this will really sort of test your ability, but that's sort of the purpose. Take a well-established mathematical framework. This could be the Black-Scholes model. This could be Ornstein-Uhlenbeck, whatever it is. Take one of these mathematical frameworks, right? Analyze deeply the assumptions that go into the derivation. You should be able to follow these derivations. If you're trying to get hired as a quant researcher, you need to be able to follow those things. So if you aren't there, you need to brush up on your math. I'm not saying you should understand them the first time you read them, but if you spend a week on like one of these concepts, you should be able to sort of have a grasp of it. So analyze deeply the assumptions that go into them. And then what I want you to do is relax those assumptions. Maybe the assumption is for log normal returns. Can you relax that into something a bit more realistic given market data that you may have your hands on? Find some better framework for it and carry out the analytical work to obtain this kind of novel framework. Even if it's not amazing, even if it doesn't work great, the fact that you can do this shows your ability to conceive a project, carry out the math on your own, and sort of guide a project from beginning to end independently, which is incredibly important for a quant researcher. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So that's wrapping it up for this video. We are pretty much at the 20-minute mark, so I will call it there. There will be a follow-up video where I sort of have this big tree of more specific things that you can do, some textbooks, some math classes, some coding classes, what types of projects you can do in more depth. So keep an eye out for that. But this is going to do it for this video. So I will say thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.